Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dark Winds Season 3, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, Joe's dealing with the fact is going into check in. Obviously, the autopsy has been done for Ernesto's body, and it's just the tough part of the job, having to like be there with the parents who have to luckily he didn't have to do it on his own because Gordo was there, because even Emma was like, you don't have to, this could be someone else's responsibility, but Joe's like, no, like I'll do it, because it's just I'm getting, especially because at home he was looking at the picture of him, Joe Jr. and Emma, so it's just kind of like, it's like dealing with kids in general is obviously going to be a tough sore spot for him in the grand scheme of things, because he as a parent knows what it's like to lose your child. So all that, and that's why Emma said what she said, like it doesn't have to be you, because she knows how hard this would be for him in general. Like no one wants to have to like be there to kind of have to witness a parent have to like identify and like, oh my god, this is my child, and have to see them that way. But also it cuts even deeper when it's like, yo, you've been through that, that pain, and you wish you could do something for them, and the only thing you can do is like, I can try to get justice for your child, that's all I can do, but it won't erase that pain. Everything with him is like what's happened with BJ Vines has not changed anything. It doesn't change the fact that Joe and Emma lost their baby, and it's just so it's kind of that thing of knowing, like, even on the other side of it, even if I bring justice to what happened, like it doesn't erase what happened to yours. I mean, it kind of went through a similar thing in season 1 to some extent too, if I'm remembering correctly. So, but either way. But obviously Joe is like, also when he first pulls the sheet off of Ernesto's body, he sees BJ Vines, and it's just like, he's still being haunted by that. But also the thing that was in Ernesto's mouth last episode, turns out it was an arrowhead, and for Joe, that tells him it wasn't another Denis like who ended up doing this, because it's like it had to be like someone else, like a white person or something, to do it, because it's such a sacred object. He is like, it's the parallel of like a Christian wouldn't commit a murder using a crucifix, because that would be sacrilegious. He's like, it's the same thing. So he believes George is potential another target. Like if Ernesto was killed, there's a good thing George might like be the next target, and it's like, let's find George before he ends up joining Ernesto. But also, I mean, I think the argument could also be made like, well, if there's a hardcore enough zealot, they might use a crucifix as a weapon. So that is something you have to think about as well. But he ends up meeting the professor or whatever that's running the dig site, played by Christopher Heyerdahl. And I was trying to think, I was like, what was the most recent thing I saw him? And I was like, maybe Peacemaker might have been the most recent thing. There's probably been something more recent that I'm just blanking on. But like the moment he's introduced, you're just like, once again, he gets typecast a lot where you're like, he's playing a bad guy, isn't he? He has to be. I don't know if he's going to be like the main bad guy of this season or not, but it's just like, hey, maybe though he's against typecast and he's just like, no, I'm running this dig site. But the dig site definitely seems relevant to all this, because Ernesto and George worked at the dig site. Thought it was interesting because the woman there, Teddy, like she got super upset upon finding out about Ernesto's death. I was like, why is she in particular taking that so hard? I was like, I thought that was interesting. Like, I mean, the last conversation they had with her, it didn't seem like she was that like, I mean, I guess it's like, right, these are kids that died, and maybe it's because you kind of got to know them because they were working at the dig site, but I'm like, that reaction, I was like, there's definitely something there. I'm like, I hope it ain't something like nasty, like you were having a relationship with a child type of, nasty. I hope it wasn't anything like that, but I'm like, because that reaction, I was like, why, what was that about? Whatever it is, it seems like the professor knows. I'm like, what was that reaction about? But we'll find out. But yeah, he examines the arrowhead, and it turns out it's a toy arrowhead. And I love that he tossed it, but Joe was like, no, that's evidence. And the guy was like, right, of course. And it's just like, oh, if you see George, give me a call. He's like, oh, in fact, I'll drag him to you. And Joe's like, I would appreciate it. I'm like, I don't know, man. Once again, that's the sad thing of like, once again, because Christopher Heyerdahl gets constantly typecast, so you're immediately like, I'm suspicious of that guy. But we'll see if anything more comes of that. They found out Shorty's alibi was a lie because Chi went to go check it out, and it's just like, yeah, the person that was covering for him is like him, and Chi knows like, yeah, you guys have history. Every time there's trouble coming Shorty's way, you're always like right beside him. Do you really want to get him mixed up in this? And he's like, right. Shorty told me the lie, so they ended up arresting him because they checked out the place. They found a blade with some blood on it. Ernesto was cut up, so they're thinking this might be the same weapon, but it turns out it's horse's blood on it. And Chi is so adamant, like, no, it's Shorty. I know he did it. He's capable of doing something like this, even though none of it lines up with it being him. But it's, yeah, Chi's letting his personal issues with Shorty get away. Understandable. It's like, it's not only it's like, did this guy make your life a living hell with just being a bully on his own right? But obviously, when you're looking at him and thinking about him, you also associate with what he did to your mom and what he put her through, what his dad did to your mom and put her through. So it's like there's a lot of baggage, there's a lot of animosities, or a lot of issues in between them. So I guess I wonder, did they talk about it in the show, or did they talk about in show, or was it kind of like one of those in like things that was never in the context of the show? Because Joe didn't know about Chi and Shorty's beef, but he's talking to Bernadette later on, and she kind of knows like the resentment they have towards each other. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's what I'm trying to remember. Is like, did they ever have that conversation? Did they talk about Shorty in like because I know I know like he's talked a little bit with Joe about his mom, but I know he talked to Bernie a bit about his mom. So I'm like, I don't know if that ever came up in those conversations of like season 1 or something. I definitely don't think it was like last season. I think it was like a season 1 thing that might have come up, but like I said, I don't remember. So do let me know in the comments, or is that, like I said, is that supposed to just be like a conversation that never actually happened, like from what we saw in the show, but like kind of like anytime him and Bernie were together, like they confided in each other about stuff like that or something. That's what I'm curious about. I think it's interesting timing too, because just when like Chi's dealing with all of that, Bernie's dealing with the fact is her job being what it is, and she has suspicions about what's going on. And I love that it's funny because she called initially because she wanted to talk to Joe about it. Like she needed kind of like a sound, like she needed someone to kind of bounce some of that off of, and think like, I'm not crazy, right, to think there's something more to this. Like, how should I go about this the best way? But then like when she hearing Jim's voice, is just kind of like, oh, like all that's kind of stirring up, not just for her, but him as well. And it's just kind of like, so much was said, so much was left unsaid and continues to be unsaid. Like, we have no idea how often they talk. Like, since she took the job, how many times have they talked since then? Since she left, so stuff like that, I think it's interesting to think about. But just like the awkwardness and just like the silence is deafening, because they both want to say so much, but they can't bring themselves to, because it's kind of like, I think it's almost like, not necessarily like what's the point, but just, will it change anything? Will it do anything? Because it's like Bernie made her mind, and I'm sure for Jim, it's like, if I say anything, am I just going to, like, I don't want her to feel guilty about making the choice she made, even though I do miss her and we were where we were at with things. So I don't know. We'll see where things kind of go on that front. But continuing with everything, we also had Joe and Emma, where like Emma's becoming friendly with Sylvia, and I love that she's like, oh, made a new friend. She's like, yeah, she's an FBI agent, she's a woman, never thought that was possible. It's like, yeah, she's just here to kind of deal with a loose case or whatever. And Emma's like, what's that mean? He's like, it just means that she'll be gone in a week. It's like, I think it's interesting that you don't even want Emma to know what she's here like specifically investigating, the whole BJ Vines of it all. So obviously, Emma can tell there's something on Joe's mind, but he's not really saying it, because it's like, well, I've got that to deal with, which is also, the BJ Vines of it all is also manifesting itself as me being kind of haunted by that. Then there's the whole monster thing that, is going to be like a perpetual element of this season too. So it's just so much stuff connected and just pulling and tugging at Joe's, sense as a good person and his soul, and feeling so conflicted. It's interesting too, because he talks to Sylvia later on being like, oh man, she's like, how did the judge let BJ Vines just kind of go? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know about him, or something like that. I forgot the exact phrasing. And she's like, what? He's like, white man's justice. And then her to say, well, what other kind is there? Which there are layers to that comment. I don't think it meant, it can be interpreted the way I don't think she meant it. I think she meant it as, well, there's only like the justice of law. There's no other justices. There, not being like personal vendetta, vengeance, justice type of thing. Which, I mean, that's what she was kind of leaning and winking to. But there is also the extra layer of like, oh, like outside of there being the white man's justice, what other justice is there? There, like I said, it's a layered comment. Like I said, I don't think she meant it that way. It could be interpreted that way, and maybe she did, but I'm assuming she meant the whole, there's only the lawful justice and there's no other justice, is there? So either way, it's like, oh yeah, where would BJ Vines go? A man who's so old and soft and cushy at home with his beautiful wife. Like, why? And why would he? Where would he go without his money? He's like, well, you find him and you'll be able to get those answers you ask him yourself. And she's like, yeah, I guess I will. So you're just like, oh boy. She's definitely suspicious of him. She definitely knows more than what she lets on. The fact is that she went out of her way to probably, who knows how long her and Emma were talking, because she's probably trying to get a sense of who Joe is through Emma and trying to find out stuff. But it's like, well, Emma doesn't know everything. Joe's kind of, I actually don't remember if Joe ever like brought last season, if he talked to her about the BJ Vines of it all. I don't, because she, once again, she doesn't even know that that's why Sylvia is here. So I don't, but even then I'm like, I don't remember if Joe ever told her anything about BJ Vines being responsible for Joe Jr.'s death, but I don't remember. So anyway, I kind of dropped it earlier, but I'm not dropped it, but like I kind of uh, like went away from it. But when they interviewed Shorty, like because I talked about like the knife didn't match any like blood from Ernesto, so he had nothing to do with it, or at least nothing there saying he had anything to do with it. So they kind of had to let him go, which once again was kind of eating away at Chi because of his personal vendetta with Shorty. And he talks to him later on in the episode. It's like, all right, like, just because you're free to go doesn't mean I think you're innocent. And he's like, yo, like, I'm like doing whatever I want to because I don't want you to like come after my son just because of your beef with me. And it's like, dude, like, let's say you had nothing to do with Ernesto's death, Shorty. What if it wasn't you and if it wasn't George? George might know. So let me, like, don't let our beef, our issues between each other, stop us from doing kind of what's best for your son. So Shorty leads him and Lee Porn to where George is, and they get attacked. Shorty gets knocked out, and when Lee Porn goes in there, he suddenly gets attacked by the creature. She was on the other side of the cabin trying to make sure no one left, so that means George wasn't in there at the time. So, but yeah, Lee Porn gets attacked, and even that last line, he's like, are you okay? And Joe's like, it's real, because he's like, I didn't, because he could never tell how much of that was just in his head. The fact is, like, my hand is clawed up. It's like, well, you know, once again, this show has dabbled with the supernatural a bit. So it's like, is this real, or is it just all psychological? Like, could it be like, yo, Joe did get attacked, but his mind dealing with everything manifested it like that, but that was just a regular person and he just doesn't remember their face? Or are we doing Scooby-Doo elements here where it's just like, no, it's someone dressed up like the monster? Like, you know, that's going to be the thing to see. So those are only three options: either someone in disguise, it's in Joe's head and that really was just a regular person, but it's just Joe's head manifested it look like that monster, or it just legitimately is that thing. So we'll have to see where things kind of go on that front. We circling over to the Bernadette's side of things. She's continuing her investigation, looking for the van, and I, like an idiot, was so assuming like, oh my god, that girl like drew that symbol. I was like, oh my god, it's a badge. But it's like, no, it ended up, well, still could be someone. I mean, the way this whole plays out definitely seems like people related to a badge might have a part to play in all this. But essentially, it was the symbol to a ranch. I was like, oh, I felt so stupid. But what was it? Tom Spencer's, I think is the dude's name. So he's like, oh, like, hey, you want to come on down, take a closer look. And basically, it's an oil business. They obviously dig up oil and transport it. They found, well, Bernie found what seemed to be the van. She brings up the license plates. Oh, who would have drove it like 2 days ago? He's like, I could look that up, but I've got like a million other things to worry about. Obviously, this ties into the opening too, because I forgot to talk about that. We meet the guy who actually stole Bernie's gun. Um, that was interesting. And he was feeling so like, he's like, yeah, I could have easily gotten away, but I went back, got the gun, yada, yada, yada. He was so proud of himself about it. And then, like, what's his name? Budge. I think later on his license says, like, Roberto, I believe. So I'm assuming, like, Budge is just kind of a nickname, but, like, let's go with Roberto if that isn't, like, a fake ID or whatever. And choked home dude out with, like, a plastic bag, the one he was spitting his seeds into. And I was like, I was like, wow. I mean, the gun is there, so. But I was like, I guess why waste the bullet? But didn't kill him. I was like, wow, he's dead. And it's like, nope, knocked him out long enough for you to push the truck down into a spot and then bury him. I was like, Moments like that made me go like, I don't know if I've ever been in a situation where I can clearly be like, yo, I am claustrophobic. Moments like that made me tighten up my chest where I'm like, it makes me uncomfortable, giving me like that pitfall feeling in my stomach too, where I'm like, I think I am claustrophobic. That's just the most like nerve-inducing thing. And it's like, the poor bastard's blowing the horn. Even when the dirt's over completely and he's driving away, you still hear him blaring that horn. I was like, you poor bastard. I'm assuming they killed him because he screwed up. And it's like, you potentially could be identified, so we might as well get rid of you. So, like, you're a loose end, so. Because we see that guy later on with one of Tom's trucks being. He's like, oh, yeah, like I'm the second driver. He's like, he's the person there to make sure things go down without issue. Once again, it does seem like it's a trafficking thing, but it's an oil tanker, so it's like, how is, like, not less, what is, like, why was he specifically there? So not less the oil being transported is real, but it might be a thing of the oil's transported, but then, like, on the way back, they're bringing, like, trafficked people. So when you're leaving, you're not trafficking people, but maybe when you're coming back, you are. Who knows? Like, I don't know if it's like because it was like a woman and a child, and I was about to say, like, not unless you're, like trafficking people for, like, indentured servitude labor, but it's like, well, would you really like do that for a mom and her child? So it's like I guess you are just straight up selling them to somebody. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait to see where things kind of go. Because Bernie went to like Tom's like ranch in the first place investigating, she kind of got stuck on what was it, weighing duty for like the trucks to go by, and that's where she runs into Roberto. So, because, like, what's her name? Garza was trying to warn her, like, yo, like, don't mess with Tom. Tom is kind of like a fountain of source of information. So, as, for Border Patrol. So, I guess it is that thing of, I give you a little bit so you look the other way. Bernie was kind of getting, poking questions like, what kind of information do we get from him? But then it's just kind of like no one is willing to give her a straight answer about that. So it's like, okay. So he's definitely benefiting from this, like us looking the other way. That's why I'm like, it doesn't seem like necessarily like Border Patrol is fully in his pocket of like, there's someone that's, I mean, it could be like, yes, her boss is actively working with Tom, but it could just easily be a thing of he's just paying you off to look the other way. So it's not fully equated. Well, it's not like maybe you don't know all there is to know about it, but it's that feigning ignorance in the regards of, I know you're up to something shady, but I don't want to know. So for plausible deniability, I'll take my cut and look the other way. And you toss us some minor things here and there just to kind of keep it appearing to be above board. So who knows? Once again, Roberto gives off that creepy, scary energy too. Like that whole sequence where he's just like, when Bernie's checking out the tanker and she's walking in. For one point, you see home dude on the other side of the truck, and then you look lower and you don't see his feet anymore. And by the time she gets to the back of the truck, he's already standing there looking creepy as hell. I was like, that's nerve-wracking. So she kind of had to let them go, but she's like, I know there's something more to this. She just, once again, it looked like it was just a tanker full of oil. So who knows how their operation works. I mean, it could just as easily be a thing of because she came to investigate, they made sure that this tanker, the fact is she just happens to be put on that particular job. Like, you couldn't find something else to put her on. So it's like, they purposely set that up where it's probably like her boss is like, all right, I'll put her on this duty. And Tom is like, well, good, I'll make it so the tanker is nothing but oil. That way she'll kind of finally let this go, potentially, so. And also the crazy thing being, like, once again, the guy, even though it's not the guy who stole your gun, the guy who currently has your gun is literally, like, right next to you. Not unless he got rid of it, but I'm assuming he's still holding on to it, so. Like I said, some very, very interesting developments. I'm curious to see where ultimately all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.